Several countries, including Lebanon, Sri Lanka, Russia, Suriname, and Zambia, are currently experiencing financial difficulties and defaulting on their debt. Additionally, it suggests that Belarus is also nearing a financial collapse, and that there are at least a dozen other countries that are also at risk of economic instability. Factors contributing to these issues may include rising borrowing costs, inflation, and high levels of debt. Despite the current financial difficulties faced by several countries, there is hope that some of them may be able to avoid default. This may be possible if global markets stabilize and the International Monetary Fund, IMF, provides support. However, it also acknowledges that there are a number of countries that are at risk of default. Ukraine. Ukraine was the first country to receive financing through a new window established by the International Monetary Fund, IMF, in October 2022. The IMF Executive Board approved an emergency financing disbursement of $1.3 billion to Ukraine through this new window. This suggests that Ukraine is facing some financial difficulties, and it was approved a financial assistance by IMF to help them overcome it. Naftogaz, a state-owned oil and gas company in Ukraine, may default on a coupon payment for its Eurobond on July 19. This raises concerns that the company may also default on a $2.2 billion sovereign bond in November, due to the negative impact of Russia's invasion on Ukraine's economy. This potential default puts additional pressure on Western nations to accelerate their plans for providing emergency budgetary support to Ukraine, as the country appears to be running out of funds to meet its expenses. Tunisia. Several countries in Africa are seeking financial assistance from the IMF, with Tunisia being particularly at risk of financial difficulties. It highlights that Tunisia has reached a preliminary agreement with the IMF for a $1.9 billion loan to address economic challenges, including food and fuel shortages. This will be the third agreement between the two since 2013. However, it is also mentioned that previous agreements have not been fully implemented by Tunisia. These agreements included measures such as reducing subsidies, privatizing state-owned companies, and cutting costs for civil service wages, which are among the highest in the world relative to the size of the economy. This suggests that Tunisia is facing economic difficulties, has reached an agreement with IMF for a loan, and agreed to implement structural reforms to overcome it, but the progress and outcome of the previous agreements are not clear. Ghana. Ghana has been borrowing heavily, which has resulted in a high debt-to-GDP ratio of almost 85%. Additionally, the country's currency, the cedi, has lost nearly a quarter of its value this year. Ghana is already spending more than half of its tax revenues on debt interest payments, and inflation is approaching 30%. This suggests that Ghana is facing significant economic challenges due to high levels of debt, currency depreciation, high inflation, and high debt interest payments. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, has agreed to provide a $3 billion loan to Ghana to help the country address its high levels of debt and restore financial stability. The loan will also be aimed at helping people most affected by rising prices and other economic problems. The loan from the IMF is intended to help Ghana get its debt under control and improve the economic situation in the country. Egypt. Egypt has a high debt-to-GDP ratio of nearly 95% and has experienced a large outflow of international funds this year, estimated to be $11 billion, according to J.P. Morgan. Additionally, it is mentioned that FIM Partners estimates that Egypt has $100 billion in hard currency debt that needs to be paid over the next 5 years, including a significant $3.3 billion bond in 2024. This suggests that Egypt is facing economic challenges due to high levels of debt and outflow of international funds, and that it has a large amount of debt that needs to be paid in the coming years, including a large bond payment in 2024. The IMF has agreed to provide a loan of $3 billion to Egypt over a period of 46 months to support the country's economic reform program and help address its economic challenges. This loan will be an extended arrangement, which typically implies that the loan is being provided over a longer period of time, and also includes measures like policy conditions, structural reforms, and performance criteria to ensure the success of the program. Kenya is currently spending about 30% of its revenues on interest payments. Additionally, the country's bonds have lost nearly half their value, and it currently has no access to capital markets. This is a problem as Kenya has a $2 billion bond coming due in 2024. This suggests that Kenya is facing economic challenges due to high levels of debt and interest payments, and a lack of access to capital markets, which may make it difficult for the country to meet its debt obligations, particularly the $2 billion bond that is due in 2024. Pakistan recently reached an agreement with the International Monetary Fund, IMF, which is considered to be crucial for the country. It is also mentioned that the agreement comes at a timely moment, as the country is facing an impending balance of payments crisis due to high energy import prices. The statement also highlights that Pakistan's foreign currency reserves have fallen to as low as $9.8 billion, which is barely enough for 5 weeks of imports. Additionally, the Pakistani rupee has reached record lows. It is also mentioned that the new government needs to reduce spending quickly as it spends 40% of its revenues on interest payments. This suggests that Pakistan is facing significant economic challenges, such as balance of payments crisis, low foreign currency reserves, weak currency, and high levels of debt and interest payments, and the new government is taking measures to address these issues with the help of the IMF. I hope you liked the video. Please like, share and subscribe the channel for more videos. Thank you.